I'm ghosting along towards the harbour here. Flat mirror-like sea, and Ros is behind the camera, the auto helm's doing the work. Ros can see what's happening ahead and I can see what's happening all around us. So we're well covered. When I enter a strange harbour, there are one or two things that I always do, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but first I'm going to tell you where I learnt the lesson. I learnt the lesson coming down from America one time to Anguilla, and the lighthouse on the end of Anguilla was out when I got there. There'd been a hurricane. We'd had a bit of a tough time from it actually, but they'd had a worse time in Anguilla, and I'll tell you why in a minute, because I decided that because there was no lighthouse, what I was going to have to do, I was going to have to go in on a very calm, flat stretch of coast, which runs straight upwind to Road Bay, which is where we were going to anchor. So I was going to run a line of soundings along there where I knew I'd be safe even though there's no lighthouse. So that's what we did. We went in onto the coast till we found the soundings, all done on astro navigation. There's no GPS of course, so we're working on soundings. This is 1983. So along we went, everything was going fine until my mate, who was on the lookout on the bow on this thick black night, suddenly says, "There's a big black shape in front of us." I said, "Well, there shouldn't be." He said, "Well, there is." And well, we dodged round it. It was huge as we went past it, and we went along, and after a bit he said, "There's another." I couldn't believe it, because there's nothing at all on the chart. There should have been nothing. But what I learnt was always be ready for the unexpected, because we anchored behind the second one, knowing that at least if we anchored we'd be safe. A bit rolly out in the open, but we were all right. And in the morning when the sun came up, we were surrounded by wrecks, wrecked ships that had been wrecked by the hurricane and left there derelict, because the hurricane had only been a week or so before, and that was it. We could have hit one of them. We took it easy and went slowly, and we were lucky. But I'm never going to make a mistake like that again. I'm really careful when I enter a strange harbour, particularly in the dark. Today it looks like it's going to be dead easy. No problems at all, lovely and calm, no wind to blow us around, and I've got some idea of what sort of dock we're going to find when we get in. But just to be sure, I'm going to cover all eventualities, and we'll see how we set about that in a minute. But right now I'm going back to the wheel to make sure we're going the right way. Ross says we are, but I'm going to be certain. First thing to do in home waters is call the harbour master for the port that you're going to. Now you might choose to do this on VHF. They quite like it if you do that actually, but if you're not comfortable with the VHF, you can find the phone number these days in the almanac and also in a good pilot book. So don't hesitate. Call the harbour master or ring him up, tell him you're coming. He wants to know how long your boat is, how long you are expecting to stay, and if he's got a berth he'll allocate it to you. So that's that stress all out of the way. You don't have to go in there and start looking around for a berth. The other thing you might do if you're talking to the harbour master, on a day like this it's not going to matter unless there's a swinging tide running, but often harbour masters have a way of giving you a berth that you don't like at all when you get there. They might give you a berth where you're coming in down tide and downwind, and they're giving you a berth that's starboard side too. Well, that's going to be nearly impossible, isn't it? Because it's going to be hard to stop, and when you put your engine astern, if you've got a right hand prop like most of us have, your stern's going to cartwheel out to port, and it's going to be messy at the very best. So ask him about the berth he's giving you. If you're unsure of yourself and you're not quite sure about handling your boat, tell him. He won't mind. He'd rather know, and just say, "Look, I haven't had this boat very long. I'm not very experienced. Can you give me a berth that I'm going to be going in upwind or up tide, if you've got one? That'll be really helpful. Thanks very much." And you know, if he's got one, he will, because what he doesn't want is trouble, and what you don't want is trouble. All you got to do is communicate. Okay, that's the first thing. If you're in foreign parts, like I am at the moment, I'm up in the Baltic Sea, and very often when I'm in the Channel, I'm going down into France, and it's unusual for a French harbour to keep a harbour master there all the time to answer your questions. There won't be one, almost certainly, unless it's somewhere huge like Cherbourg. Up here, there definitely won't be. All these things are run on honesty boxes, and it works electronically, so there's no problem at all. You just go in, find yourself a berth. Actually, they have a good system here. They have a little flap, and if it's red, you can't go in the berth. And if it's green, it's up for grabs, and you can. So that's good too. But the thing is, leave yourself plenty of time and make sure you've got all your kit ready for any sort of berth, port side to or starboard side to. And here's how we do that. Right, first job, get some fenders ready. I see people coming into harbour and they're coming alongside the berth and people are strapping their fenders on. I can't believe that people do that. It's madness. We do it in good time. This is our gate. This is where Ros will be stepping off when we get in. And so I take the bottom one out. That's one less job. That'll keep me inboard. And I'm going to put my fenders on now. I put 2 fenders, decent sized ones. Look, that's a fender. You don't want a tiny little thing like a little kid's balloon. 2 of these each side. And I put them in the middle of the boat, which is where, if I get it halfway right, the boat will kiss the dock. It's easy enough then to go either side too. We don't have to have a last minute kerfuffle with people tearing around the deck. And there's something else too. We have a rover. We always keep a roving fender in the middle, and Ros has set this one up already because she does the dancing around on deck. Look how she's done it. It's simple, but it's clever. The fender's in the middle, so it can go either side. And she's got a lanyard here. She can grab it from this side, and she's thrown it across so she can grab it from the other side as well without having to scramble. Just a little bit of forethought. So over go my fenders. I'm guessing the height here. About there, I reckon. That's a good middle sort of height. That'll deal with most things. Round turn and 2 half hitches suits me. Depends what you're doing. Sometimes I put them on with a clove hitch and put a half hitch behind it just to be sure. So we're going to put them on here so they're not straining the guardrails too much. Round turn, 2 half hitches, and when I've got them on, I bring them back inboard because we don't want to be traipsing around the ocean looking like a old shipyard, do we? There we are. Now the boat looks fine. I'm going to do the same on the other side, and then I'm going to get my lines ready. Right, fenders are ready. Shorelines next. We're going to put one of these out on each corner of the boat, so that if we're starboard side 2 or port side 2, it doesn't matter. We've got 2 lines ready, and we can always bring another one across if we need a spring line quickly or something. And thinking about this, when I call the harbour master, I ask him which side 2 I'm going to be. I didn't mention that earlier, but it's very important because it's really helpful to know. If you definitely know you're going to be starboard side 2, you can set everything up on that side. But very often you don't, so if you don't, be ready for anything. So here we go. Here's how to set up the dock line. I'm going to feed it out through the fair lead. Make sure it's out and clear of everything. I'll need a good few feet of this now because I'm going to carry it forward to the gate, which is where Ros will be stepping off with it. So I'm going to give myself plenty. There we are, that'll do it. And as I lead it forward, I'm going to lead it forward in such a way that it would be very difficult for it to fall overboard and into the propeller, because that's horrible and catastrophic, and we don't want that to happen, and there's no need for it. So as I lead it forward on my particular boat, I can do it like this. I just put it inboard of that little block there, take it forward inside the tow rail all the way, inside the Genoa fair lead block, keep going inside the tow rail until I reach the gate where we're going to want it, and then I just hitch it off with a rustler's hitch. If you want to know how to do one of them, go on my website and have a look. It's great. Look, the rope's quite safe, and when I want it, all I have to do is that, and it's ready to go. So we'll just tie that off there like that, and that's one done. I'm going to tidy up the other end, and I'm going to lead it to the winch, because the stern line, the way we deal with that, when we get in, Ros steps off with it, just usually drops a bowline over a cleat or a post or whatever there is, and then I snap up the slack on the winch. And that's the stern line done. Then we've only got the bow line to think about. So there we are. I'm going to put it around the winch, a couple of turns, and that's ready. Coil down the rest so I don't trip over it, and chuck it over the winch for now. And that's one of my lines ready. I'm going to do the same with the other quarter, and we'll make a similar arrangement on the bow, so that when the time comes for Ross to step off, she's got them both ready at the gate on whichever side she's going to be, and I'm going to put the gate alongside the dock. And really, you know, if you do all that, you're okay, aren't you? Doesn't matter what horrible things the world serves up to you when you get there. You've got ropes on each quarter, you've got fenders ready, you've got a rover ready, you're sorted.